Alright, imagine yourself frantically studying. It's 11 PM and tomorrow you've got one of the biggest exams for the entire school year and you need to perform well. The next thing you know, it's 12 AM. You work out that you probably need some sleep, so you pack up and go to bed. The exam rolls around. You receive your test paper, and as you look through the questions, you think, damn, I messed up. You seem to have brain fog too, but you go through it as well as you can. Sure enough, a couple of days later, when you receive your results, seeing your grade shakes you. Damn, you reflect over yourself. What could I have done differently? Hello, I'm Aaron, based straight A student, and during last time exam season, I wanted to get an A on the next exam. It was, I remember, a chemistry test, and I wanted to do really well on that. But guess what? I ended up getting a B. Now, for many people, a B grade is still a good grade, but for me, with Asian parents, nah, it's A or nothing, bro. So I had to improve my grades, right? Now, what will happen if I don't manage to improve my grades is that my overall grades is just going to be lower and I won't achieve like the goal that I set in the start of the year. And so I needed to improve this, and I read a bunch of different books to try and help me, and after experimenting and testing stuff out, I found like this right approach that kind of worked, and after using it over and over again and refining it over time, I began to consistently secure a high grade in all my exams, whilst it being quite a simple process. Now, I'm not trying to sell you an easy fix, alright, but life can be simple if you choose it to be. And these tips resulted in better grades for me, and I became a straight A student whilst doing stuff like self-improvement habits and gym on the side, and also doing entrepreneurship stuff. So first we'll go through 3 tips before the exam, then we'll go through 3 more tips right before the exam when you're about to enter like the door to the classroom, and finally 3 tips whilst you're sitting in the exam writing your answers. Now, the first tip is not to get emotional. I see so many people when exams are coming, they panic, they get anxious, they get nervous for no reason whatsoever, and that creates a lot of emotional energy built up in their minds, which just correlate over to worst performance during the exam. Like, bro, all these emotions are kind of pointless, and instead you should go for a more logical route in taking care of what you need to do to secure a higher grade without getting all emotional about it. Like, come at it with a rational, logical mind, and it will result in you, like it did in me, not being so emotionally attached to every single exam. The second thing is to do something called success visualizations. Now, this is something that all successful people do, whether they think about it or not, and it's from the book Psycho-Cybernetics, which is about self-image and visualizations. And you can read the entire book if you want, but basically, you want to be visualizing yourself doing well on the exams and getting a good grade before the exam even happens. You want to be like priming your mind and telling it and putting your thought energy on the line of getting good grades and thinking of like imagining, visualizing yourself doing well on the exams, writing down the correct answers, and getting like receiving the A grade notification or whatever. And that also, according to the books, increases your chance of like actually making it true by like 80-90% or something crazy like that. And this, I can guarantee you through my personal experience, that this somehow, it definitely works. The more you give your thought energy and the more you think about something, the more it's going to grow, whether it be negative or positive. Now, third tip, instead of getting emotional about an exam, let's say you have an exam in biology next week and the teacher didn't remind you 2 weeks prior to that like you're supposed to, whatever. Instead of getting emotional and fighting the teachers for why didn't you do this and getting anxious and nervous, instead of all of that bullshit, you know, wasting all your energy like that, instead just take at it with a logical mind and think like, okay, this is how it is now. How do I take care of this like in a completely unemotional way? Like, what I've found is to logically take action depending on the circumstances and keep moving in the direction that you personally choose your life to be, or whatever grade you're going for. Let's say you were expecting the exam to be in a month, the biology exam, and suddenly it became next week and there's a lot of stuff to study, right? And you weren't planning on this. But that's fine. You can readjust. Humans are good at adapting to different situations, and so you can think about your plan again, and you can definitely fit it in a week. You would make like a plan and a schedule. You maybe would use a whiteboard and write down everything and exactly what you're gonna do, and you would just logically and calmly take action towards that without getting too emotional. That I've found is like the best chess move when this kind of stuff happens, and that will help you do much better on your exams. Real quick, if you want my most used personal Notion templates to help you be much more systemized and effective in life, then you can check them out. They're completely free, first link in the description. Alright, so it's right before the exam, you're lining up to go into the classroom, you have your notes in your hand, everyone is frantically reading through your notes. What are the best moves right here to make sure that the exam that you're about to give goes really well? A tip is to surround yourself only with your exam topic. So let's say that hypothetical biology test rolls around and it's the day of the test. You would make that day kind of like a biology themed day, and you would only think about biology. Your mind, like the lens that you use to view the world, the perspective that you used, should be like completely biology focused. Like before, maybe you looked at nature and you just, yeah, it's a tree, whatever, it's a grass. If you're in like a biology day, you would like twist and like adapt your lens to be like a biology lens, if this makes sense, and view the world in like biological terms of like species and, oh, that's grass, how does that link to the ecosystem there, you know, and literally just only think about biology and make the entire day around that. If this is an important exam, this will help you like put your mind in the correct like area of life, biology in this case. If there is some other random subject before, like maths or something, like fuck that, there's not an exam there, it's not part of your 20% Pareto's principle. Only focus on the biology that day, because you know that the biology exam is important and that it will contribute a lot to your grades. Maths, there is no test there, so you don't need to be actually doing maths or thinking about maths at all. I don't recommend that. Instead, keep your mind on the biology, and when there eventually is a maths test, then that day you only think about maths and then you fuck biology. That's basically kind of like the mindset that I use, and it has served me really well. Essentially, keep your thoughts on the exact subject that you have the exam on. The fifth tip, which I've personally started doing, and I've learned this from many testosterone doctors and like the real unconventional advice that you find online, is to fast before an exam, or to at least not eat any carbs. Now this can seem unconventional, right? Like most doctors say that carbs are an essential part of your diet and that we should all eat carbs, and bread is really good, and pasta and shit, and grains too, right? But it has been proven, and many times I've seen, that eating carbs just makes you slow. It makes your mind just think 10 times slower, and you don't really want that right before an exam. This doesn't mean that you cut out carbs completely, right? Let's be realistic. And so the best case scenario, if you really want to maximize your chances for an exam, is, let's say you have the biology test after lunch. For that lunch, for example, you wouldn't eat anything other than maybe water. If there is like good meat, like sausages, like you could dumma that, like eat that if you want. But if it's like bullshit pasta, bullshit rice, then it's not auspicious to eat it right before an exam, because it will just make your mind slow. If you're experiencing brain fog, I found that carbs are usually the culprit behind it. And also when people say like they get an afternoon dip in energy, and that really affects their exam performance if it's in the afternoon, and that's why they're tired then. That's because you're eating breakfast. What most people eat during breakfast is stuff like toast or oats, right? And those are grains and carbs. When you eat carbs in the breakfast, later in the afternoon, your energy is gonna drop considerably, and your energy is going more towards digesting the slow carbs. And I remember on the days that the exams are in the afternoon for me, I only eat, like, if there is like a good lunch, I only eat the protein there. Fuck the carbs, only take the protein, whatever that is. And that just keeps me much sharper, and it allows me to do really well in the exams. Now we have 3 tips during the exam when you're in the classroom writing your paper. The first is to do proper deep breaths and also do visualizations. Most people, when they first get the exam paper, maybe it's stuff that they haven't practiced, they immediately start panicking, and like the previous step, they get emotional, which is what you don't want to do. Instead, you want to stay present and focused. And if you see that it's stuff that you haven't done, just deep breaths, like calm down, it's not that important, like lower your fucking important levels, and all it takes is just to remember and keep in mind to stay present. And you can do that by taking deep breaths and not get emotionally like dragged into the questions and the exam, which just result in a worse performance. Also during the exam you can do more visualizations, like for each different question you visualize yourself doing it and solving it. But I would not suggest spending too much time at all, like 5-10 seconds per question, like maximum. And that's all you really need, just a tiny bit of visualizations, and that also helps, I've found. The second tip during an exam is when the teacher gives you the exam, the first thing you want to do is, of course, write your name, write your date, all that stuff. And then you want to, instead of starting straight up on the first question and immediately getting going, I suggest that you scope out the entire exam paper first. You look at all the different questions, like how many questions are there, what is like the difficulty level, what are the stuff that seems super familiar to you, what is the stuff that is kind of like questionable to you. You flick through all the papers and you see the different questions and how long each would realistically take you. You would then look at the clock. There is clocks in exam hall, right? If there isn't, bro, like wear like a watch like this. I have like a Casio watch there. Just wear any type of watch. That's also really helpful to keep you track of time. You would look at the clock and visualize yourself like going through each of the questions and looking through how much time will this take me, how much time will this realistically take me. And you do like a 2 minutes scoping session where you just scope out the exam, do a bit more visualizations before you actually start going on the first question. And it's much better than just randomly starting to do the questions, and when it's like the last 5 minutes you realize you have 2 more whole pages that you have to do, which you completely didn't even account for. And finally, the last tip is to yield to simplicity when you're doing the exam. Remember that there are always going to be simple solutions to any question that's in any exam. At first glance, right, they can seem complicated. If it's like a hard level, A-level question, you can look at it and be like, fuck me, how the fuck am I gonna do this? And you immediately, like, right, the natural fucking human behavior is to start getting emotional about it. You don't want to be doing that. When you notice a hard question, you'll notice yourself likely like getting drawn into the question and getting emotionally attached to it. And you start getting nervous and panicking, and random emotions just come into play. And you completely forget to stay present. During times like these, just stay awake and remember not to get drawn into each question, like don't get emotionally attached to them, and instead yield to simplicity. Because tell me if you've never experienced this before. After you finish the exam, a few weeks later when you get it, when you look at the answers, some of the questions, you see that the answers were really simple. I mean, when you were in the exam hall writing the exam, it felt so complicated, so complex to you. But later you see that, oh shit, how did I not get this? It was right there, it was so simple. And that simpleness we're completely throwing under the bus when we go that deep and get emotionally attached to it. So the best case scenario is simply to be separated and like be detached from the questions, which has really helped me to just stay present, use the simplicity, and get the simple solution without getting emotionally attached to the question and going on a huge loop around and wasting a bunch of time. If you're 13 to 18 years old, click here where I talk to you a lot personally about the life lessons that I wish I knew when I was younger. And as always, your potential is only limited by your intention. Take care, bro.